Greetings everyone, welcome to Ansarkari. So now we'll be continuing with the topic HCF and LCM. So this question says M is the largest four-digit number which when divided by 4, 5, 6 and 7 leaves a remainder 2, 3, 4 and 5 respectively. Which means if we divide this particular four-digit number which should be largest, what happens is when we divide this particular number by 4, the remainder we should receive should be equal to 2, and the remainder in case we divide it by 5 it should be 3, and so on. Then they say, now this question says when m is divided by 9 what will be the remainder. This is the question is asking, it is not written here. So in this particular case what happens is first we'll take the LCM of these particular numbers. So the largest four-digit number can be 9, 9 and 9. So 9999 can be the largest four-digit number. So obviously the number that we will receive will either be this particular number itself or it will be smaller than this number, because if it becomes greater than this number then it will be a five-digit number which we do not need. So first what we'll do is we'll take the LCM of these particular numbers and then we'll divide 9999 by that LCM, so that we get a remainder and we can know that what we need to subtract from this particular number, so that that particular number is completely divisible by 4, 5, 6 and 7. So first we'll take the LCM of 4, 5, 6 and 7. So we can write 4 in the form 2 raised to the power 2, then 5 we can write just like this only, then 6 becomes 3 into 2 and 7 remains 7. So we just converted them into the basic prime numbers and also we just included power if required. So we'll take 2 raised to the power 2 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 7. So this should become our least common multiple, and I have discussed why we are taking these particular numbers. So it will be 35 then multiplied by 3, which means it becomes 105, multiplied by 4, which means it becomes 420. So now we'll divide this particular number, that is the largest four-digit number, we'll divide it by the LCM. And then we'll receive the remainder, and then we'll discuss that what we need to do with that remainder. So if we divide this, first it will go with, so we know that on dividing, first it will go with, like, we'll write here 2. So it becomes 840. So it becomes 5 and here it becomes 1. So it becomes this. Now we cannot do 4. We cannot multiply 420 by 4 because then it will go in the line of 1600 and we need a number lesser than this. So we multiply it by 3, which will give us 1260. So it will be 3 and 3. So the remainder that we receive is 339, which means that we need to subtract this particular number from the largest four-digit number that can be possible, so that this particular number completely divides the given number. So if we subtract 339 from this particular number, we will receive 9660, which means that all these numbers will be able to divide this particular number completely. Right, now this is largest, that is the reason why we are dividing this particular number by LCM. The least common multiple of these numbers is this itself, but 9660 becomes a multiple of this particular number, which means that all these numbers, that is 4, 5, 6 and 7, will be able to divide this completely, and hence the remainder that we'll get is 0. But here what they are saying is that the remainder should be 2, 3, 4 and 5 respectively. So see here in case of 4, if we just talk about, so first if we'll divide this particular number, that is, if we divide this number 9660 just by 4, then the remainder that we'll get will be equal to 0. But here they are saying that the remainder should be equal to 2. So what we can do is, one way is that we can add 2 into this number. So we can write here 9662. And then if we'll divide, the remainder that we'll get will be equal to 2. But what happens is, we need to focus on the other cases as well. For example, here it says that when we divide it by 5, the remainder that we should get should be equal to 3. Now obviously the number will remain 1 only, the number cannot change. So if we divide 9662 by 5, the remainder that we'll get will not be equal to 3, it will be 2 only. Because again 9660 is completely divisible by 5, so the remainder that we'll receive will be 2 again. Which means that we need to find such a number which gives these respective remainders. And for that what we need to do is, see in these type of questions, it will obviously, for sure be the case that the difference between the divisors, for example, the difference between 4, 5, 6 and 7 and their respective remainders, that is 2, 3, 4 and 5, it will be the same. So if we subtract 2 from 4, we'll get the remainder as 2. If we subtract 3 from 5, we'll get the answer as 2. Again, in case of 6, if we subtract 4 from 6, we'll get 2. And in case of 7 and 5 also, we'll get 2. Which means that 2 is the common remainder. So we'll think of this particular number 2 as k. And then what we need to do is, the number that we receive, which is completely divisible, we need to subtract k from this particular number. And so we'll get 9,658. So this particular number will be our answer to this question. So in this case, if we try, for example, if we try dividing this particular number, that is 9658 by 5, then on dividing, the remainder that we'll receive will be equal to 3. Which means that we need to subtract the common remainder, the common difference that is present between the divisor and remainder, from the particular number which is completely divisible, or like which is multiple of the, which we get by subtracting this particular remainder from the largest possible number that is present. So in this particular question, so they are asking that what will be the remainder when this particular number is divided by 9. So we'll check by dividing this number by 9. So if we write here 9658 and on dividing it by 9, again we'll have 10 here, which means 90, then we have 665, so it will be 763, 2 and 28. So the remainder that we'll receive will be equal to 1 here, so it will go by 3. So the answer for this particular question will be B option, that is the remainder when we divide this particular number m that we were talking about, which is the largest 4-digit number. So on dividing it by 9, the answer that we'll get, the remainder that we'll get will be equal to 1. Reading the next question, the greatest number that divides 411, 684 and 821 and leaves 3, 4 and 5 as remainders respectively is. So basically they are asking the greatest number that divides, which means that this particular question is an HCF question. The prior question that we did was an LCM question, and this question here is an HCF question. So this question says the greatest number that will divide these particular numbers, and then we'll receive these particular remainders, which means that we do not need to find the HCF of these numbers, because if we find the highest common factor of these numbers, then these numbers will be completely divisible and the remainder that we'll receive is 0. But here they are saying that the remainder should be 3, 4 and 5, which clearly indicates that these numbers, that this particular number 411 is 3 extra than what is needed. So what we'll do is we'll respectively subtract these remainders. For example, we'll subtract 3 from 411, we'll get 408 as a new number. Then the next number that we'll get is, we'll subtract 4 from 684 and we'll get 680. Then in case of 5, we need to subtract 821 from 5 and hence we'll get 816. So we need to find out the highest common factor of these particular numbers. And after finding out the highest common factor of these particular numbers, what happens is, when we divide these numbers, that is 411 and then we have 684 and 821, when we divide these by that particular number, the remainders that we'll receive automatically will be 3, 4 and 5, because they will be extra, because this highest common factor is meant for these particular numbers, which means that this highest common factor divides these numbers completely, and the remainder that we'll get will be 0 in this particular case. And now to find out the highest common factor of 408, 680 and 816, what we'll do is we'll just try to convert them into the prime numbers or perhaps factors in form of prime numbers. So we do not need to solve for 816. The reason being this is a multiple of 408 that is present here. Like if you multiply 408 by 2, we'll get 816. So it is of no use calculating it for 816 because we are considering here highest common factor and not and not least common multiple. So doing it for 408 and 680. So as we can observe here, see 680 and 408 are both divisible by 8. The reason being the divisibility rule of 8 is that the last three digits of the particular number that for which the divisibility we are checking, they should be divisible by 8. And here 408 and 680 are both divisible by 8. So first we'll write here 2 raised to the power 3 since 2 raised to the power 3 is equal to 8. And then we need to multiply this by 51 here. Right, see 8 5s are 15 and we'll be left with 1 8 itself. And here we'll have 2 raised to the power 3 that is 8 multiplied by, so 8 8 is 64 and then we left with 5, so it will be 85 here. So these will be the two numbers present here. But after this, since 51 and 85 are not prime numbers, so we'll again try to convert them. So this becomes 17 multiplied by 3 and this will become 17 multiplied by 5. So now all these are prime numbers. For example, 2 is a prime number. We do not need to focus upon the power right now. What we need to make sure is that the base is prime. So here 2 is prime, then we have 17 that is prime, and then we have 3 that is prime. And here again we have 17 and 5. So all these are prime. Now we'll check the common base that is present in both of them. So what we have is first we have 2 raised to the power 3 that is common in both. Then it will be multiplied by 17 because 17 is also a prime number and it is common in both these numbers, right? Both these numbers, that means for 408 and 680, which means that the answer will be 8 multiplied by 17, which will again give us 136. So this will be the answer, which means this will be the highest common factor of both these numbers. So here the answer becomes 136. This will be the answer for this particular question.